All right, hello again. Ronnie here, and I'm excited about today's topic. A lot of great things happening, a lot of challenging things going on in our country right now. And so let me bring you up to speed. All right, tonight I am in, I think this is week 3. So the first week on Monday night, I introduced you to a skill called uh, um, finding blessings. So let me just go back and I'm going to go ahead and put the screen share up here. Let's see. Finding blessings. And what I challenge you to do is be able to look at the last 72 hours and find 3 good things that have happened in your life. And then there's a set of 4 questions that you are to ask yourself about that. Or if you're doing this with family around the dinner table, asking them. And what we learn is this exercise works and it helps you develop gratitude. What does that mean? Helps you get in a better mood. All right. So I highly recommend this, and I bet there's people in your family that recommend that you do that skill. Last week, I introduced you to a skill called Learning Your ABCs, and the A stood for Activating Event. The B was your beliefs or your thoughts, and the C was twofold. It was your emotional consequence and your physical consequence, and they're all connected. And I went through a thoughts consequences chart with you, and that chart looked like this guy right here, real bright and red and yellow. If you have not had a chance, I would encourage you go to tbccentralia.com/Monday. And matter of fact, I'll go there right now, so we'll see. Well, that'll happen when you can't find the server, when you don't have the right address. TBC Centralia. There it is. All right, and if you go there, what you'll find is downloadable content from what I'm telling you. So there's a participant guide, 53-page participant guide, and that is a PDF file. So if you right-click where it says click to download, or you right-click on this picture here, you will be able to download that. And it's a PDF. You can have it on your phone. You'll follow along. And it's got a lot more exercises, and a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you is right there in that participant guide. Then week 1, I talked about the 7 core competencies. And if you just hit that little play button right here, you will play the video. So I could do that for you, but I'm not going to. Well, I'm not going to let it play that long. I would encourage you to take this core competencies survey, where you go through and you just evaluate yourself. Scale of 1 to 10, where's your emotional regulation at? Scale of 1 to 10, where's your social awareness? Scale of 1 to 10, where's your confidence at? And what we know is those people with more out of these 7 that tend towards the 10 side, looking to see if that video is playing in the background. So if you guys hear it playing, just yell at me and I will turn it off. All right. Also, the Finding Your Blessings card. You can print this up and let it. Hey, Kenny, Rhonda, good to see you on here. Carrie, it's good to see you across the table and on the comments. All right. So tbccentralia.com/Monday. Then you could also find week 2, the video from week 2, as well as this is the ABC's chart where you can write down the activating event, the thoughts that you had about that.
Here without any problems from a technology perspective.
Oh, it's finally started playing. All right, let me turn that off. Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna jump in here. It is.
There we go. All right, that should stop it. And then this week, I am going to be talking to you about detecting icebergs. That's the topic, and this is a very powerful topic. This is the one that probably can help the most people the most. And if you saw what I put on the lead in to this Facebook Live, it's that what makes you tick is also what ticks you off. And I want to show you where that comes from, why you have these tendencies, that they're not necessarily bad, but I will be upfront with you that a lot of times they have a negative or a bad result because of the way that we react to them. And so I call these icebergs. I got this straight out of the book, Resilience Factor, 7 Essential Skills for Overcoming Life's Hurdles. I used this or learned about this back in 2011, and it changed my life. This skill that I'm going to teach you tonight probably did more to change me as a person and help me. I mean, the finding your blessings, the ABCs, those were good, and it helped me. The thought consequences chart really helped me out a lot. But detecting icebergs really helped me see where I was damaging relationships, and I had no clue that I was doing this. So I hope that I show some of you tonight that same freedom is available for you as well. Let me talk about my protest beard. All right, so this is the last time you're going to see it, at least during this series. The next time you see me, I will not have my protest beard. It worked. I was growing this. I said I'm going to grow it until churches are able to meet in person, specifically our church, Temple. And Governor Pritzker, he probably saw my Facebook or Twitter comments I made about him, and he gave in, compelled. I mean, I heard that Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh reached out to him, but I'm thinking that it was probably this beard, and he's like, man, that's got to go. And so last Thursday, he really lifted all the restrictions and then gave guidelines. And this past Sunday, we had an awesome service at Temple. If you're in Centralia or Southern Illinois, I hope you can join us next Sunday at 10:45 for some good stuff. And so what I've been doing through this series is I preach a little bit of a biblical viewpoint of all of this material. And so this past Sunday, yesterday, I talked about going deep. And I used Hebrews 4:12, and I showed you where it says that the Word of God pierces and divides between your thoughts and the intentions of your heart. And so today, when I say iceberg, I'm referring to the intentions of your heart. You know, we say things, we think things, but then there's a whole nother level that we don't share with everybody. And that is what, when I use this term icebergs, that's what I'm referring to. So the slide here says, many times when we lose control, we yell, we become arrogant, argumentative, maybe even unpredictable. One moment we're nice and happy and life is going good. The next minute, it's like a volcano just erupted within us and we become abusive and hurtful. And when this happens, what I've discovered is that we blame other people. All right. And these are some of the terms or phrases that we use. We might say, like, I'm just trying to emphasize a point, or, it's not really me. It's, what we're saying is to everybody else, or I'm not really like that, or they made me act this way. I mean, what's going on in our country right now? I promise you everything that we're dealing with here goes back to icebergs, deeply held beliefs that we all have. And I'll dig into that a little bit as I show this all to you. So when I see these things, or I see people pointing out, I recognize that there's icebergs there. So tonight, what I want to do is I want to show you how that you can identify your deeply held beliefs. You can identify those things that make you tick, those good things, those great things about you. But those are the same things that tick you off when you see other people doing them, or maybe when you fall short of that standard that you've given yourself. I want you to be able to identify your core values, because we all have those that fuel what you say to yourselves. Again, not where everybody can hear it. When you're driving down the road by yourself, that's that conversation that you're having. Those are usually your core values that's going on. And in the heat of the moment, they'll really come out because of that pressure. This skill helps us build the core competencies of impulse control, and it can give you control of your emotional thermostat, allow you to determine when you're going to get angry and lose control, give it away, or when are you going to remain calm, cool, and collected. I hope through this that you learn to identify what your core values are, what your deeply held beliefs are. I mean, I think that this is what makes you special. I think it's what makes you great. But I've also learned that what makes us great can become a great liability to us and to the relationships that we're in. And then finally, I hope that I can show you how that your icebergs, your deeply held beliefs, your core values can work for you, or they can work against you depending on how you understand them. So when would we use this skill? All right. So remember, I'm teaching skills, finding blessings. When do we use that? Well, if you want to get in, feel grateful, change your attitude, finding your blessings. That's the way to do that. If you want to slow down and start thinking about what you're thinking about, the ABC skill is what you would use. So when do we use detecting icebergs? Well, number one, if your emotions are out of proportion to what you're thinking in the heat of the moment. All right. So a good example is this. Have you ever been told, don't cry over spilled milk? Well, if you're crying over spilled milk, that's probably an iceberg. All right. If you're getting upset over something that's trivial, there's probably a deeply held belief, a core value that you have. And the problem is you don't understand it. That's why I call it icebergs, because it's below the surface. It's invisible to, and a lot of times, most of us don't even realize we have these. The second reason is if the intensity of your reaction surprises you. Have you ever done that where like you've gotten really angry and you're like, why am I getting angry? You kind of have that conversation with yourself, or you even say it out loud. If that's ever happened to you, there was an iceberg. There was a deeply held belief. There was a core value that you had that was somebody came up against, or you rubbed up against somebody else. And then the third reason is if you notice a belief consequences disconnect. And so what I showed you was if you have thoughts that your rights have been violated, you're going to have the emotion of anger. And when you have the emotion of anger, you're going to attack. Well, what happens when you believe your rights were violated? Instead of attacking, you withdraw and you go into a corner. Like, that's not normal. That's a belief consequence disconnect. And I'm going to show you with a couple of examples those disconnects. And when you recognize that, that's another indicator that there's a iceberg, a deeply held belief or a core value that you have. If you see these pictures here, everyone in these pictures looks like they just had the iceberg bumped up against. The guy on the cell phone, he's telling them, hey, I'm not going to pay you. The little girl there, she's not happy. I don't know what made that girl upset. But that couple, which one do you think just had the iceberg incident? Yep, that's right, her. All right. And this guy's like, what'd I do? What'd I say? So if you see one of those, if you look like one of the people in this picture, probably got an iceberg. So let me start tonight with a video, and I want to show you this video here. Let's see, can I get there? All right. Hopefully the sound comes through.
Now, is there anyone here?
And see if you can identify the Waterboy's iceberg, deeply held belief.
I know the answer to this question. Raise your hand. Anybody? Anyone? Yes or you, sir?
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Your mama said alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush. Wow. Anybody else? Yes or you, sir?
Alligators are aggressive because of an enlarged medulla oblongata. It's the sector of the brain which controls aggressive behavior.
That is correct. The medulla oblongata.
But Mama
The
said...
medulla oblongata is where anger, jealousy, and aggression come from. Now, is there anybody here can tell me where happiness comes from? Anyone? All right. Let's hear what Mama has to say on the subject.
Mama say that happiness is from magic rays of sunshine that come down when you're feeling blue.
Well, folks, Mama's wrong again.
No, Colonel Sanders, you're wrong. Mama's right.
Mama's right.
All right. So let me see if you recognized. Was his emotions, the water boy's emotions, out of proportion of what he was thinking in the heat of the moment? I mean, he knocked out the professor. Or was he surprised at how upset he got? I think that the answer to that is probably yes. So let me ask you, what was the water boy's iceberg? What was his problem? And if you're guessing what Mama had to say, then you are right. And so if we were to, what was the activating event? Well, the activating event here was the water boy. So remember we asked the four, who, what, when, and where. Who? Water boy. What? Colonel Sanders disrespected Mama. And then when in college class, and where, I don't know, or what date. What do you think the thoughts were that the water boy was having? And, he's thinking that Mom's not right. Or not, I'm sorry, Mom's not wrong, and the professor is. And then he didn't like the fact that everybody's laughing at him. And so I don't know what he would say as he felt, but obviously his rights were violated. Why? Because he was angry. He felt angry. And what did he do? I attacked Colonel Sanders. So that's how we use this chart. And so let me kind of just go and explain the difference of last week ABCs, or surface beliefs, and then underlying beliefs, what we're talking about now, what I talked about Sunday, going deep. Surface beliefs are what I call those hot thoughts. They happen in the moment, and it's easy to identify those. I mean, you might blurt something out, or you might just, very easily share it with other people. But then you can go into iceberg beliefs, or deeply held beliefs, or underlying beliefs. And a good way to describe underlying beliefs are the rules that you live by. The problem is that these rules that we live by, we hold everybody else to those same set of rules, but they don't know it. Sometimes your wife or your husband, they don't know that they just violated one of your life rules. Your children, sometimes they don't know that they're the ones who violated one of your life rules. And when that happens, we act in a way that surprises us. We act in a way that we probably don't want to act. And I think sometimes we act in a way that hurts our relationships. Another way to talk about iceberg beliefs are core values. Companies are known to have core values. Well, I think that every one of us as human beings have our own set of core values. And what I want to do tonight is share with you when those develop, who we get those from, and then go into how you can identify those and what do you do about it. All right, deeply held beliefs. So here are a couple of good examples of iceberg beliefs in action. So I can handle anything. That's very noble. Somebody who's got confidence, right? That's one of the core competencies. But do you believe that if somebody like this is a core value, like a deeply held belief, they can handle anything, do you think that could get them in trouble? Yes, it can. How? Because if they believe that they can handle anything, most likely they're not going to ask for help. And when they get in over their head, they just try and depending on what their job is, somebody might get hurt. Somebody might get killed. Something might get destroyed. Being honest matters. Again, noble. But what happens when it gets out of control? Some of you, honesty is one of your core values. And when somebody is not being honest, it bothers you deeply. Sometimes you don't say anything about it, but it still bothers you when you're on your way home riding in the car. Somebody who has a core value or an iceberg belief that being honest matters, your friends come up to you and say, hey, tell me the truth. And then they give you the scenario. You're like, oh, come on, don't make me tell you the truth. Because you know what you're going to say is going to hurt them. Why? Because you can speak the truth. Why? Because that's a deeply held value. That's a core value. That's a rule that you live by. What if we believe that people can't be trusted? Well, if we believe that people can't be trusted, we end up not trusting anybody. We isolate ourselves. What if you believe the world is a dangerous place? Whenever I see this, when I think of a mom of a newborn baby. All right, so moms of newborn babies, And this is what I experienced. I've got somebody in mind. I'm not going to say her name, but her daughter just graduated from college and is about to get married. And when their first child, if a binky dropped and hit the ground, they would sterilize the binky. I mean, it was not going back into that child's mouth until it was sterilized. But here's what I've learned. Once you have a second child, binky falls out, hits the ground, and you go and run it under the sink. Good enough. Third child, binky hits the ground, you pick it up, you wipe it off on your pants, and you give it right back to the child. Why? You've learned that they're not going to die. Matter of fact, you've learned that, God made dirt and dirt don't hurt. You've learned that not everything that they put in their mouth is going to kill them, because there are a lot of times where they put stuff in their mouth that you wouldn't have allowed them to, but they got there quicker than you could. When I think about this world as a dangerous place with people with infants, what did they do? They put signs in their cars, baby on board. Like everybody else is going to drive better because baby's on board. All right. Why? Why do they do that? Because they believe the world is a dangerous place. I mean, you find yourself when you're driving with little children in your car that you probably drive differently than when they're not there. Here's another belief. It's important to treat others with respect and dignity. Man, that's great. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But if this is your deeply held belief, your core value, and you see somebody else not being treated with respect or dignity, whoever's doing the non-treating, they go get whacked upside the head by you because they violated an unwritten rule that you live by. How about this one? My opinion doesn't matter because I'm just a spouse, or I'm just a kid, or I'm just you fill in the blank. If that's a deeply held belief, that'll paralyze us and keep us from making good decisions. So where do these icebergs come from? Well, number one, they're learned behaviors. This is not in your DNA. You weren't born with any of this stuff. You learned every one of these deeply held beliefs. You learned every one of these core values. And here's what's interesting is I'm saying probably, but when I say probably, I mean like 99%. You develop them in your adolescence, in those early teen years. When you start identifying them, you're going to probably even go back to when that happened. And then you learn them, you learn these behaviors while you were a young teenager from your family. So I just want to share this with you. If you've ever said these words, I'm never going to do this because my mom used to do it. Or my dad used to do this and I hate it and I'll never ever do that. That is probably a very good indicator that you've got a deeply held belief there. And what I've discovered is that what we do is we mirror that. So like we tell ourselves, I'm never going to do what my mom or my dad did. And we do it, but we do it in another way that to us, it's not the same, but it's the exact same. If you put somebody objectively and they look at that situation like, oh man, that's the same exact thing. So icebergs are learned behaviors. They developed in our adolescence, and you learn them from family. Could be mom or dad, could be an uncle, could be a brother or sister, cousin. All right, so when I was in 2011, I went through this 10-day course to learn this, and they asked me to write down my iceberg beliefs. And so here's what I wrote down. I wrote down, life is all about relationships. I wrote down I am two, which means I am second. I want to put God first in my life. I wrote down that everyone does things for a reason. I believe that. I think that, when someone comes in the door, slamming the door, I know that something's going on. Not that they just wanted to slam the door and break something. I wrote down it's never as bad as it seems. All right. So, right there you can kind of see where optimism or gratitude is probably a little easier for me than some people. I wrote down life is 10% how you make it and 90% how you take it. Boy, that sounds just like the ABCs. I wrote down this, I will be a successful airman if I have my family sitting on the front row at my retirement. And, it's wonderful now because there's a lot of military people who get divorced. And, thank goodness, praise the Lord that I was not one of those. 28 years in the military, multiple TDYs, multiple deployments, and, Carrie is still my wife. I will lay down my life for my family. That's a deeply held belief. That's a core value that I have. I believe that to have friends that you must be friendly. Where do you think I developed that? From the Bible, yeah. Personal responsibility is my responsibility. Core value. Where did I learn that in my adolescence from family? And then the last one was, to be a good leader, you must be a good follower. So these are, and let me just say, these are not my exhaustive list. There are other deeply held beliefs that I have, but this is what I wrote down. This is what I identified when I was just like where you're at right now, wondering, hey, I don't know about this ABC stuff. I don't know about this, gratitude. I don't want to be more optimistic, but I want to have better relationships. I want to improve the relationships that I'm in. And what I'm going to ask you to do in just a few minutes is I'm going to ask you to identify and write down yours. You're not going to have to share them with me, but I want to help you kind of see how that they can help or hurt you. So grab a blank sheet of paper or pull out a device that you can type on. And what I want you to do is in the next 3 minutes, come up with as many iceberg beliefs as you can. So I'm going to put some music on here. And let's see here. Inspirational music. And I'm going to let it play for 3 minutes. So I'm going to be in and out. All right, hours of epic music. Let's see how it works out. Okay, there comes the music. All right, 3 minutes. 7:30 right now. So for about 7:32, I'm going to start talking again. Come up with as many iceberg beliefs as you can. I'm going to put mine back up there so you can see those. One easy way to identify your iceberg beliefs are to think about your pet peeves or what ticks you off. About 30 seconds left. There's the instructions. Come up with as many iceberg beliefs as you can. All right. Turn that music off. And so here's a scenario, all right? I'm just going to read it out loud. You should be able to read it there on your screen. And that is, as Bill Smith is sitting down to watch Sunday afternoon football with his son, his wife reminds him that the sink is still leaking. Excuse me. Smith thinks to himself, it's just a small leak. I'll fix it later. But then he becomes enraged, gets in his wife's face and yells, what the blankety blank blank, back off. All right, so let's run through the ABCs on this. What was the activating event? All right, if we did the who, what, when, and where, the who is Bill Smith. What happened? His wife reminds him that the sink is still leaking. When? On Sunday, we're at his house. Now, what were the thoughts that were going through Bill Smith's head? And so you can see the chart here. And so obviously, it looks like it started off with impending danger, anxiety, and a little bit of agitation. And then it went straight to trespass. How do I know it was trespass? Well, I just reverse engineer this. We saw aggression. And aggression is because of anger, and anger is because we believe our rights were violated. So looking at the scenario, how in the world did Bill Smith, I don't want to edit this a little bit, sorry. How in the world did Bill Smith have his rights violated? So I've got a couple of thoughts on this. Number one, maybe he was thinking the fact that, it's Sunday, it's football day. Like, I'm watching my football game, nothing interrupts my football game. And so when his wife interrupted that was trespass. His rights were violated. She didn't ask him to do it right then, but, maybe that's a conversation he had. Maybe he was thinking to himself that, this is the first time I got to sit down with my son and watch a football game. We're watching my team play. And he's thinking about how one day his son's going to take the mantle and support that team. And again, rights violated. So bottom line is, when we look at that scenario, is really his emotions were out of proportion to what was going on. And as soon as I see that, absolutely, we know we got an iceberg there, right? And so now what I want to do is I want to show you a video. This is real life. This isn't a commercial. It's not a movie clip. It's not made up. I'm going to show you a video clip, and this woman has a meltdown, all right? Now, it's going to get rough, and I'm going to try to silence it just for the minute that happens, but if I miss it, this is real life. This is a mom. This is a mom who loves her son. And I want you to see if you can detect her iceberg. So let me go find it. Oh, there it is right there. All right, so like I'm a massive tech guy, and it's funny how it sometimes doesn't work. It's about to come up though.
Here, get a little pissed. She's gonna look in here.
So just give it a second to buffer that. Iceberg.
This is Vital Energy. This is our drink. It's got as much caffeine as 2 Red Bulls. And we have 26,000 of these drinks in my house right now. My mom hates when they're on the first floor. She finds one, she'll throw it outside. So here's what we've done. This is our family room. Got a little over 1,000 cases in here. This is where they spend every night just chilling on the TV. And going to the living room. I have a feeling my mom's gonna race in here, get a little pissed. She's gonna look in here. She's gonna spin around, see her china cabinet, which is no longer filled with china. We got our Vital Energy. My dad, his office is his little abode here. And my dad is OCD, ADHD, and he absolutely loves his hat rack. So we toppled it over with some drinks. Now, where do we put the china? China is downstairs. It's my mom's lovely stuff. And this is where we store most of our drinks in our warehouse. Okay, I'm so scared right now. I'm shaking.
You should see my house. You should see this.
Oh, fuck.
I think I got the wrong video. This is mom and dad trying to get into the door.
Holy shit. What the?
She has no idea she's being filmed right now.
Christ. Shit, we can't even go upstairs. What did you do? What are you doing? Where's her Where's her china? Just be quiet. Just come here. Settle down. Come on. We can't get up. Well, we can get upstairs. We gotta go through there. Holy shit. He knocked over. He threw down my. He must have been mad at us, Mary. Mary, he must be mad at us.
I cannot.
They must be mad at us. I can't believe it. They must be mad at us.
Kathy, where's Michael? Where's Michael? Yes. No, he's not. And my house is destroyed. I just walked in. There are drinks everywhere, everywhere.
Hey, Mike?
My china's out of my cabinet. There's drinks in there.
We don't know where it is.
Kathy, when did you last talk to him?
Oh, Mike. Cody's here now.
Okay, he just walked in, Kathy. He just walked in. Okay, Mike, move out. Please move out.
We
Move out! Move out!
I muted that. Mom gets you can see from the picture there.
You're being so disrespectful! This is my house! I worked my whole life for this! I worked my whole life for this!
All right. So there it is. So let's go through. Let me see. I'm not seeing what I want. I want this right here. All right. So let's look at this. So there's Mike's mom. And what was the activating event? And remember, we all have activating events. Carrie and I just had one this past weekend. Our refrigerator, quit working, and so could it easily allow that to ruin the day or what was going on, or make life difficult. So we've been out without a refrigerator now 3 days, and it's going to be another week before the part gets in. But instead of focusing on that and allowing that to bother us, we've been thinking about redoing the kitchen. And so we found a stove that Carrie just loves, because it has the air fryer as part of the stove, the oven. So yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to be putting in, we've had new flooring that we've been waiting to put into the kitchen. We're going to put new flooring in, going to get a new refrigerator, get a new stove. Carrie's going to get a new kitchen, probably get new countertops too when all this is said and done. And this is a situation that we could easily, be upset about, or it ruined our day or weekend. Well, Mike's mom here, what happens? They come home from the skiing trip and they see all those drinks in the house. Now, the reality is that if you watch the beginning of the video, a lot more than that was going on. They've been up for almost 24 hours. Their flights were delayed. They've been sitting in the airport, and as they're walking in the door, trying to get the door unlocked, this is what they see. And so Mike knows that this was a hot button issue with his mom. And so what were the thoughts that Mike's mom was saying? Well, she was just letting it all out. I can't take this anymore. And telling him to get out. Now, let me just ask you, does she love her son? I mean, he's a grown young man, probably been through college, and now here he is, an entrepreneur trying to start this business up. Mom and dad letting him store 26,000 bottles of Vital Energy. Yes, she loves him. She cares deeply about him. But because of what he did, she's ready to throw him out, kick him to the curb. Get out of here. Don't ever want to see you again. That's what icebergs do. That's what deeply held beliefs do. When somebody violates one of those, we don't just get angry. We don't just attack. But we do it in such a level that it's irrecoverable. I am convinced that most people get divorced because of icebergs. Most people break off lifelong relationships because of icebergs. It's not because of the toothpaste. It's not because of the toilet paper. It's not because of where you do the toilet seat. We'll blame those. Why? Because we don't want to talk about our deeply held beliefs. We don't want to talk about who we truly are and what we really think. Because if somebody laughs at that or think that's like us at our core. And if that gets rejected, everything about us gets rejected. And really that's why this is such a powerful concept. So, man alive, where was Mike's mom on this chart? Well, obviously she was at trespass, but before she was at trespass, she was at impending danger and anxiety and agitated. Remember, I can't take this anymore. She was hyperventilating. Hyperventilating's right there with agitation or anxiety. That's what that's all about. Let me ask you this. Did Mike's mom have an emotional thermostat? Could she dial it up to rage and dial it back to calm, cool, and collected? The answer is, many of you probably just said no. And the answer is yes, she did. She could. Do you remember? She's freaking out. She is hyperventilating. She can't control herself. And then she gets a hold of Mike's girlfriend. And she went from hyperventilating to, hey, do you know where Mike's at? And then when she gets off the phone, hangs up, being the good soon-to-be mother-in-law, hangs up, just absolutely flips that switch, dials that back to rage, and then cusses her son out. Tells him to get out. That's what icebergs do. That's what our deeply held beliefs do. Well, let me point out sometimes we have a mismatch, and that is, maybe you've lost something. Maybe somebody in your, I think about this one when my mom passed away. There was 12 or 15 of us in the room singing. It was a glorious time for us to be there. I'm holding her hand. And then when she passed away and I walked out, this is probably 20 minutes later, I walk out into the waiting room, and I almost, I just want to start throwing the furniture everywhere. Now, nobody knows. I don't think I've ever shared this out loud. But that's really, I mean, I'm literally walking by and I'm thinking, you know, throwing the tables and chairs and couches and I didn't. But why with my mom dying, you know, losing something, that's natural. Sadness, that's natural. To be withdrawn, that's natural. To shed tears, that's natural. Why would I want to go and throw stuff? Why would I want to? Why was I angry? Why was I aggressive? Well, what I want to point out to you is that while it looks like there's a mismatch on this chart, because I really should have thoughts of losing something, but when I see the aggression, there's really thoughts of trespass. And, you know, so if I were to process that now, the way that I would explain that is that, you know, I felt like my mom was, I mean, she was young, 59 years old, was taken away from me. And, you know, I'm a Christian and I know that, you know, everything happens for a reason, but boy, that was hard. That was tough. One of the last conversations I had with my mom. So we were about to move up to Scott Air Force Base, and Mom wanted to. She was always helpful, all right, but I just felt like she was pushy and meddling, and so, in not a very nice way, I told her to stay out of my business. The last conversation I had with my mom. Folks, this is 11 years ago. It's like I'm in the hospital now. Who was I mad at? Mad at the doctors? No. Mad at God? Not really. Who was I mad at? I was mad at myself. I was just looking at this chart. I knew I'd inflicted harm. And I had a deep sense of guilt. And I never got to apologize. You know, I think about if, and this is just the way I work, but if I'm going through that, if that situation is that raw for me, you know, I mean, I'm having to hold back a lot of what I want to say, because if I don't, I want to be a mess. But if that's happening to me, and I think I'm a pretty well-adjusted human being, you know, I know what's going on out there. I know what's going on in the life of the people at Temple. I know what's going on in the life of my friends and my family. I know, and so what I would encourage you is that we've all got these deeply held beliefs, and we all act out in such a way that's not healthy for us. And so, you know, I hope that you wrote some stuff down. You know, none of this does any good. The whole point of the skill is for you to detect your icebergs. All right. If you don't detect your icebergs, Titanics are going to hit them. And those Titanics are going to be your marriage. Those Titanics are going to be your relationship with your son or your daughter. The Titanic's going to be, you know, you never going back to church again. The Titanic's going to be you never speaking to that person again. And you won't. You'll go 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, all because of deeply held beliefs. I remember teaching this just down the road at Scott Air Force Base, and this young lady shares that she was about to come up on re-enlisting in the Air Force, and so she called the person that she cared about the most in life, her dad, and she asked his opinion. And he said these words to her. He says, "You need to get out of the Air Force and come back home and get a job, a real job." And I asked her, I said, "How'd that work out for you?" And she says, "I hadn't spoken to him since." And at that point, it was probably 3 or 4 years. Now, I think I know what the dad was trying to say is, I miss you, and I wish you'd come home. But he didn't convey that. He didn't communicate that. What he did instead was he lost his daughter. I hope that relationship's been restored. But that's the power of icebergs. That's the power of our deeply held beliefs. We will destroy things in our life over it. All right, so there's a skill that if maybe you come up to a situation and you can't like really point to, like, oh, there's my iceberg. So the skill is, and how you do this is, you use what, not why questions. All right. And the reason why is, what questions are probing and why questions make you defensive. Like if you ask like, why me, why God, why, you know, there's usually not a good answer. And no matter what answer you get, you'll say it's not good enough. But when you ask what, you can become objective and you can find out more information and you can dig deeper. The questions, they're here at the bottom of this slide. You can ask them in any order. And then usually what you should do is repeat the belief that we're wording because as you start talking about this, you'll start answering the questions with different beliefs, and use that as you continue to go through that. And then you stop when the iceberg explains the consequence or you get close enough. And the reality is sometimes, you know, we just don't want to get that close. And we don't really want to find out the truth. And so here are the questions. What does that mean to me? What is the most upsetting part of that for me? What is the worst part of that for me? What does that say about me? What is so bad about that? And then you just keep doing this. And here's why you just keep asking those same questions. And I'll also tell you this. Detecting icebergs is a skill best done when somebody ask you those questions. If you are struggling with not being able to, like maybe it's a relationship, maybe there's a certain situation that just gets you. If you're struggling with something like that, I'd love to sit down with you and do the skill of detecting icebergs and help you detect what really is holding you back or what's causing you to destroy relationships all the time. But it's as simple as this. If you've got the book, The Resilience Factor, I would encourage you to find Detecting Icebergs and read through that. And they do a really good job of giving some examples about this. You know, you could see this with that mom, Mike's mom. What does that mean to her that, you know, Mike had done this? I mean, literally, it was a rejection of her. You know, I don't know if I asked, but what was her iceberg? What was her deeply held belief? And it was her house. What did she say to Mike? You know, I worked my whole life for this. What did she say to Mike's girlfriend? My house is destroyed. Now, the house wasn't destroyed. And, you know, I don't want to question her whether or not she worked her whole life for it, but, you know, that's how she valued it. That's the way she looked at it. And so, you know, I'll bet that there was if we could ask Mike's mom to write down what are her deeply held beliefs, that, you know, there was one that Mike went up against. I don't know what it is. Take care of your property, or respect your elders, or, you know, when somebody crosses one of our deeply held... See, if it's a surface belief and somebody disagrees with us, no big deal. When it's a deeply held belief. So think about what's going on right now. What are 3 easily identifiable deeply held beliefs? Race, religion, and politics. All right? And I would just encourage you, on Facebook right now, like you all of us are in no-win situations. If you, no matter what you answer, because it has to do with race, might have to do with religion, or might have to do with politics, they're not going to see it the way you see it. They're not going to apply their rules of life the way you apply your rules of life. And so what is going to happen is you are going to destroy relationships. You're going to destroy friendships. You're going to get unfriended. You're going to unfriend people. A couple years ago in the Super Bowl, the Denver Broncos were playing the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks were killing them. All right, and I wasn't really a big Denver Bronco fan. I was a Peyton Manning fan. And I just remember as I'm watching the Super Bowl, every time I saw somebody text me or write something on my wall bad about the Broncos or about the Seahawks killing them, I cut them off, unfriended them. All right. I never even went back later and apologized. I just unfriended them and kept on moving on. I think 40-some people got unfriended that night. Why? You know, for a football game. Well, that's Facebook. That's social media. What's going on in our country is much deeper than social media. It's much deeper than your surface friendships that are there. That's also a reason why you can throw your stuff out there and then argue vehemently with people about it. Okay, let me wrap this up. Once you have identified what your iceberg beliefs are, here is what you need to do. You need to ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1 is this iceberg belief, is this deeply held core value helping or harming me in this situation? And more often than not, my experience shows me that these a lot of times our deeply held beliefs hurt us. And then the second question you need to ask, is it accurate in this situation? And almost exclusively, you'll find out that the answer to that is no. Rarely do you have a situation where you get mad and you lose your cool and you yell and scream like Mike's mom. You think her iceberg, her belief that her house was of such high value, was that accurate in that situation? No, it really wasn't destroyed. And it certainly didn't help her relationship with Mike. Okay, application, and then I'll close it up. How can icebergs undercut your effectiveness in your relationships? I'll bet if you wrote some stuff down, if you'll look at each one of those items, I'll bet that you can think of how relationships that have been hurt because of that belief. Matter of fact, you'll probably go right back to the situation. I go back to one of my uncles. I think I was 12, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, or 12, somewhere in there. And him and another uncle were driving me in a T-top Camaro, and they were, gassing it and going fast around the corners and fishtailing. And I was excited. I had a blast out there with them. And I was bragging about it when I got back home. And my aunt, she didn't think that was very fun. And so she got onto her husband. And later on, it was just me and him. He said something, hurt me. I love this uncle. And after that, I don't think I ever spoke to him, ever went out of my way for him, ever tried to have any kind of relationship with him. That's what icebergs do. They undercut the effectiveness of our relationship. How can you use this skill of detecting icebergs to make yourself a better friend or a family member? Well, if you can identify what they are, you can set up, little cones around that, not literally, but figuratively, and they will help you, they will protect you, all right? And so I use this story where Carrie and I could be out at a party. It could be with friends, it could be work-related, and she can tell when I'm about to, they're going to hit an iceberg, and I'm going to say something that's going to embarrass me. But the problem is when they hit your iceberg, you don't care if it embarrasses you. You're going to act. I mean, that mom, even if she would have known she was being filmed, she'd still act like that. And I just want to go on the record. I am so glad that I have not had people around videoing when my icebergs got hit, because I look just like her. And I'll bet all of us can go back to multiple times in our lives where we acted just like her. So how can you use the skill of detecting icebergs? So the way Carrie uses it is, if she knows that I'm going to be about to get crazy, she can just, come over and whisper in my ear. And if I hear the word iceberg, I know that my tendency would be, get away, let me take care of this. But what I realize is she's trying to protect that relationship. She's trying to protect my position, my job, my whatever. And so now what I've learned is shut it down and excuse myself. And so one of the things that I would encourage you is this. Let me do this summary and close with that. And First of all, this is an internal skill. This is, this can be life-changing if you'll let it, but it's totally up to you. You choose the depth. You choose how much you want to look at your icebergs, your deeply held beliefs, or you can choose to not. I mean, I'm not here to tell you. I certainly don't want you to change. All right. So don't hear that. Don't think about, oh, it's an iceberg. Go get an ice pick and let's tear that up. I'm not telling you to do that. Matter of fact, I don't encourage you to do that. I believe that your deeply held beliefs, your core values, your rules that you live by, I think they're great. I think they're beautiful. They make you beautiful. But they also can hurt us, and they can make us look ugly at times. And they certainly can hurt our relationships. So how do we handle it? Well, we ask what, not why questions. What questions lead to depth, go deeper? Why questions lead to defensiveness. All right? And I don't want you to do that. And so, again, internal skill, you get to work on it yourself. I hope that you've been able to hear this. If you did not hear the whole lesson, go back and rewatch this. Take notes. This has the ability to help you change, transform as a person. Or, you can keep going around in bliss and ignorance and act like everything's going to be okay. And for you it is. But there's a lot of relationships that you're going to hurt, you're going to lose, you're going to destroy. And you're going to tell yourself, well, that wasn't that important of a relationship anyways. And you're going to tell yourself that you don't care. It doesn't bother you. And I know, and you know, that it does. And so I'd encourage you, go back and watch this again. I want you guys to know I love you. I am putting this out here. I don't care how many people watch this. If one person watches and gets something from this, it's been worth the time that I'm investing in this. All right. I would encourage you, if you guys have questions about this, reach out to me. Send me a private message. I will be happy to meet with you. I'll talk to you. I'll Zoom call with you, whatever it takes, because I think that this is something powerful. It is life-changing, and it can change who you are, and it can change who you want to be. All right? Love you guys. I hope you tune in on Sunday, and come back Monday night I'm going to be talking about strengths next week.